Hi, my name is Victor, and my topic was about the situation that happened in Cedarville, New Jersey. And what happened was that a couple of football players took advantage and sexually harassed and abused um, some freshman football players and in the locker room. And I just want to know what other people think about this topic.
Do you think that football is a distraction in school for students?
Well, I would say I don't know if it's a distraction as much as it is that sometimes in some places it kind of can get out of control. I think when you were talking about all the sports that are available on a high school, football gets way more attention than it probably should. However, if you look at the history of football, you'll find that a lot of cultures they do a lot of team sports and community building around football, like in especially in southern states. Following the local high school football team is a community activity. And football in itself has a really interesting history. It's a game that was created off of the European game of rugby, which is a cross between soccer and football. But here in the United States, what we've taken American football to be is it was actually created to help with military strategy. And in the 1940s and 50s, I want to say, football became more popular because they wanted kids, our students, to have kind of like, especially our boys, to have that strategic mindset. So I don't necessarily, and I think like I'm not for war or anything like that. I came from a physical education background, so I like sports, and there's a lot of good thinking that can come out of it. And I like the idea of team sports. I think that some kids wouldn't come to school or be motivated to do well in school if it wasn't for sports. But is there too much emphasis put on it? Absolutely. Do I feel like there's some kids that don't put the student and a student athlete before anything? Absolutely. I think that your academics needs to come first, and it requires a coach and a team mentality to say those academics need to be done first, and that's another way to service your team. Um, but we also have a culture that is, they think that their kid is going to be getting scholarships for football, and I think that's blown out of proportion as well. But because they have that belief, they don't push their kids in academics, which I think is a big mistake. Um, do I think it's a distraction? Only if it's not being implemented correctly. Are there things that need attention that we need to pay attention to? Absolutely. But do I think that it should be taken away from schools? No, I don't.
What are your thoughts on the school in New Jersey that canceled football season because of sexual harassment?
I find that to be a really interesting story, and I think that that those issues of sexual harassment were really under control, out of control, I should say, and I think it was the right thing to do in that case. However, I don't think that this is about football. I think this has to do a lot to do with a concept that I talk about in my health classes a lot, which has to do with bullying and the fact that it's okay for boys to pick on other boys. Um, I do believe that there is a problem that our society kind of says it's okay for boys to kind of screw around and be disrespectful. And unfortunately, um, I don't know, the media today and the type of shows that people watch kind of glorifies, like the movie Jackass, like it kind of glorifies people doing dumb things to each other. And people don't realize um, what they're doing to other people because, the people in these shows are like, ha ha ha, that was really funny and that's great. But in reality, now we're doing those to other people, and we have no right to do that. And we're considering that touching somebody sexually and making fun of them sexually is okay. Um, this is not a problem in football. This is a problem at that school, at that site, and it is a problem where it's, bullying and making fun of people is okay in our society. Um, if and I think that this is just an issue that kind of highlights what's actually it kind of highlights the moral fortitude of our society. And what I mean by that is kind of like where we're going as a society as far as like our humanity towards other people, how we see other people, how we treat other people. Um, but I think the other thing that comes out of this whole thing is that um, as a health teacher, this fact is kind of really big and important to me, and that has to do with the fact that boys that are sexually harassed or sexually assaulted or raped or molested are less likely to report it. Because if something happened to them and they're boys and it has to do with sexuality, if it's from another girl, then that's considered, oh, it's because I was such a man, and that's actually glorified, which is actually not appropriate. And so our social norms don't allow for those boys to say that they were wrong. And when it's from another boy to another boy, like, boys are not allowed to be gay in our society. And that is a huge issue in this whole situation. And I think that is, I think it's very sad that if a boy is harmed, they can't come out and say something about it, because that's not a thing a man does. And I think that's hypocritical of our society. And I think that is the real issue that's going down there. And if that school has a football team and a coach and a structure that doesn't support those kids and their safety, then that program should be shut down. But if you have a program that does support those kids and provide a safe environment for them to grow and develop, then by all means, that's a great program. But what happened there in New Jersey was actually, it's disgusting that administrators and coaches and the community allowed that behavior to occur.
Do you think the punishment should have remained the same even though if it was considered a joke?
The punishment should be worse if it was just a joke. For a human to sit there and say that it's okay to embarrass and sexually assault another human being, that's horrid. That's a horrible act on humanity, and no, that's not okay. I can see if it was an accident, you know, but not like, of course none of this is going to be an accident. But something that's done as a joke to make other people laugh at somebody else, that's a horrible part of nature, and it's horrible. So it should be the same or worse.
Do you think that football is a distraction in school for students?
I don't think that it's a distraction necessarily. I just think that football is a bit overrated for students, as in it gets too much promotion, it gets too much hype, and then whenever it doesn't meet up to its hype, students are really disappointed in it, and then that brings down the students' motivation for the next game. And that's what I think it's happening here with participation for football games. And then, is it a distraction for the football players? I think it might be a distraction, as I see it's taken way too seriously. And then I've seen a lot of football players really concerned about the grades because they perform better in football than they should with their grades.
What are your thoughts on the school in New Jersey that canceled the football season because of the sexual harassment?
Well, as far as I've been told on this case, I don't think it was a very fair punishment for the whole football team. As far as I know, it's 40 to 60 players on a football team, and I believe that the people who were accused of the harassment should have been the ones taken out, and the whole football team shouldn't have been punished as drastically as they were.
Do you think the punishment should still remain the same even if it was considered a joke?
Yes, it should still remain the same, even if it was a joke. It's no joke to be harassed by upperclassmen if they were like underclassmen. Even if it was a joke, it should still, like, the punishment remain the same.
My opinion on this topic was that only the people who, or the players that sexually harass and abuse the younger freshman football players should have been punished, and not the whole team, because I think it seems really unfair that the people that didn't do anything, that had nothing to do with that situation, they got punished and their football season got canceled because of this.